Okay, we're live. Welcome to the Pillar 2 Advisory Committee meeting. We are kicking off today. We're a little bit late. We had a Pillar 1 Advisory Committee meeting that was running right before us, so we apologize for our tardiness getting started. I am going to pass it over to... Welcome to the Pillar 2 Advisory now I hear myself too. I'm going to pass it over to John Selke to kick us off and introduce the committee members.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Silk. Sorry, I am the current chair of the advisory board for Pillar 2 and excited to be here. My apologies for the noise in the background. And so I'm going to be on mute much of this meeting. And so I'm going to immediately pass it off to Brian to introduce himself and maybe get things started in introducing the rest of the committee here.
Sure. Thanks, John. Good to see everyone. Good evening. Just quick introduction in case someone's watching this for the first time. My name is Brian King, and I am an elementary school principal in Charles County down in the southern part of the state. And we'll do a quick round of introductions and then get into our business tonight. So I will pass to Devorah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Devorah Danielson. I have been working as a career and technical education teacher, mostly in Prince George's County for the past 10 or 11 years, along with doing some work for MSDE currently.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Twitty. I am currently an assistant principal in Prince George's County Public Schools, and I will pass it over to Dustin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dustin Robinson. I'm here as a member of the AIB who supports Pillar 2. I currently work in Prince George's County, Maryland as well, and I serve as a numeracy coach, and I do get to teach one class a day. I teach 7th grade math. So I'll turn it back to Brian.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. So tonight, our meeting is really kind of a logistics, few things that we need to get accomplished moving forward, so that we're ready for the rest of the school year in terms of our work together. So there really are 3 different logistic things that we need to try to flush out. Board leadership or committee leadership for the rest of this school year, both the chair and vice chair. Hopefully we can also talk through and come up with a recurring day of the week and time of our meetings. A lot of committees will say, we meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at such and such a time. So if we could try to think through and come up with that recurring sense, knowing that we may have to adjust an individual meeting here or there. And then the final piece of logistics is to pencil in some topics so that we could potentially start to reach out if we want to invite folks from MSDE or LEAs or institutes of higher ed. So let's, I think, tackle those kind of sequentially here. In terms of the chair and the co-chair, we've been very fortunate over the couple of years of this committee to have John and Christy serve as our leadership. And they've done a great job keeping us on track and letting everybody have input. And we're very appreciative of all the time and energy that they've given to get this committee started. I know that members have had a chance over email to think about, putting themselves forward for a leadership role. So right now, let's have the discussion. Anyone that is interested themselves or wants to nominate anyone for either the chair or co-chair position, let's have that discussion now.
So I want to go ahead and nominate Brian for chair. He's done a really great job really taking leadership roles and various meetings and sharing lots of great information. So I would nominate him for chair, and then for co-chair, I would nominate Patricia, who has been with this committee from the beginning and also always brings the, different perspective, unique perspective, especially around the teacher workforce and things like housing and other aspects that are so important to that. So I would like to nominate Brian and Patricia into the leadership roles.
Great, thank you, John. Anyone else on the nominations?
I was going to ask if I'll accept those nominations. Are you interested?
I would accept my nomination, and thank you, John.
Yeah, likewise. I'm happy to give some time to this committee. And so thank you to John and Patricia. I think we'll be a great team leading this committee work forward. So sounds like we've got one box checked for tonight, 2 to go.
And I'd love to say on behalf of the AIB that we really appreciate both John and Christy, who set up the Pillar 2 Advisory Committee 2 years ago when we had really not quite a full vision of what these would become. But our advisory committees have been incredibly helpful in helping us know how blueprint implementation is going and in helping us think about next steps, what's coming, what do we need to prepare for, what are we hearing on the street. So I know it was a good bit of work and time that both John and Christy set aside to help us think about the structure of the committee, what would happen, what things we should talk about, what guests we should bring, even reviewing some of the LEA submissions that came in each year and all of that. So John, we really appreciate your leadership in setting this group up and getting us kicked off, and hope to lean on you as we're in the transition here and know that you'll remain actively involved this year. And then to Christy, who did cycle off the committee this past summer when her term was up, we extend a huge thank you for all of the work done and the perspective brought to the team. So for this team, we're excited to have you all remaining. We do have 2 members absent today, our student member and Robert Willoughby. They were not able to attend today, but they are active members of the advisory committee, and we're excited to move forward. For some of you have 1 year remaining, some of you have 2 years remaining on your terms, and then we'll have the opportunity to decide if you wish to extend or not. But many thanks to each of you for the insights that you bring and for the time that you loan to us. So John, Brian, I'll kick it back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next, let's see if we can't come to consensus on a day of the week and a time window for our meeting. I do believe at a certain point early on, we were doing, I think it was Tuesday, like first or second Tuesdays, and then we kind of came off of that schedule. I think it would be a good idea to at least set it, knowing that certain months there may not be a meeting, or it may move up or back a week. So, any initial thoughts from people, either days of weeks or times? I'm pretty neutral on days of week. I personally like starting 5:30. I think we all have commutes and things. We used to try to start at 4:30, which really gets to be kind of a blitz getting out of the buildings and home and engaged. So most of my preference relates to time starting at 5:30, but I'll open it up for others.
I thought there was a conflict with someone. I think it was Rob or maybe who had a conflict on Tuesdays. I don't know if it was one in particular Tuesday or if it was just Tuesdays in general.
Wasn't me.
We just lost Rachel a little bit, but yeah, I feel like you might be right, Patricia. I'm not 100% sure. On the time start, I wonder if we could possibly consider 5 instead of 5:30, just because we almost always go for an hour, and then that starts getting towards the dinner time and everything else if you're going till 6:30. Whereas 5 might give enough time to get out of the rush and have people get home. I just throw that out there as an idea, but I'm not wedded to it.
Okay. Others, Patricia, Devora, Justin?
I
any thoughts?
agree with John. I know 4:30 is probably rough for people, but maybe 5 would be a nice medium point. That way we're not going, into the evening without, our activities at home and things.
Sure. Patricia?
I can be flexible, and if it's 5 o'clock and I'm still at work, I'll just still be at work at 5 o'clock. But it's one day a week, so I can be flexible with that piece.
That's what I was thinking as well. I'm okay with the times. I feel like I might have conflicts on Tuesdays. I was trying to like go through my calendar and verify, but the 5 versus 5:30 is okay with me. Either one is okay with me.
Okay. So it sounds like we're coming to consensus. We'll try to move it back a bit, but not too much. So probably the 5 o'clock, and we can do this offline too with the 2 committee members that aren't here, just to make sure they don't get left out. As far as days of the week, do we want to, you want me to send out a poll via email in terms of recurring day of the week, and we'll just come to consensus that way? Or do people have non-negotiables that they just can't commit to?
I was gonna say today being Thursday is great for me. Any other thoughts from others?
I would echo that. Thursday is a great night for me. I have some other commitments earlier in the week, so Thursday is open for me.
Thursdays also work for me. And I think it worked for Rob as well. I think he was just at a conference
Okay.
today. And I believe our student board member, she was planning to be on. So I think Thursdays work great.
One thing I can
John?
add about Thursdays, yep.
Pillar one
We
has a
do have
meeting on
AIB
Thursday.
meetings on Thursdays, but that would be the third Thursday typically. Sometimes we do have to adjust that with a holiday or something like that. But if we pick one of the other Thursdays for second, fourth, we can be flexible and then just look ahead. We'll know when the AIB meetings are if we would need to pick a different day.
That's funny because I was like, Thursdays are good, and I'm
I
like,
saw that hit you.
block off Thursdays for AIB.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we just avoid the third, we should be pretty good.
The third Thursday. Okay, so we're probably looking at the second or the fourth Thursday. So I think we've got it, as far as tonight's discussion, I think we've got it narrowed down enough that we can take it to everybody over email. What I'm hearing is 5 o'clock Thursdays, either the week before or after the AIB board meeting. And then we can flush out exactly what those dates look like on a calendar. The month of December, this is a tricky time of year. I would propose, as we get our committee organized and set, I would say that we do not meet during the month of December. Any other thoughts or strong feelings about that? And we'll be ready to roll come the new year. Any objections?
I would probably say maybe, Brian, can we plan out the activities and see if we have enough months, not the activities, the topics, and see if we have enough months to cover the topics that we want to cover, to then see if we need to circle back and meet in December, since we haven't had too many meetings this school year.
Sure, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's see what our list looks like and then work from there.
I would add one other thing to just think about, and that's duration of meeting. I'm trying to remember. I know sometimes an hour is short, but 90 minutes is long, and we've already talked about the dinner window. So maybe just a quick conversation. Is it 60? Is it 75? Is it 90? Like what do you think? Or is it topic dependent? And we just figure it out each month, or just another piece to think about.
Yeah, good point, Rachel. Thank you. Any thoughts?
So to Rachel's point, I think that it might be best to be topic dependent, and that we can let people know and our committee know in advance to plan ahead. You know, I don't mind if one or even two meetings were to go a little bit longer into the dinner hour and things like that. But if it was the regularness of things. So I also like the idea of 70, maybe 75 minutes being the regular meeting time. And then if we needed to go a little bit more on a big topic, if we get, you know, there's sometimes which we're really fortuitous and get numerous guest speakers coming. So if it's a topic like that, then we as a committee will know, okay, we're actually going to go until 6:30 or, you know, or even 6:45 or something like that. But I think that 75 minutes might be a good amount of time for a regular meeting, because I do feel like we're always rushed when we're doing an hour.
I agree with that assessment. I like 75.
I agree as well.
Devorah, are you good with using 75 minutes as
Yeah,
our base?
it's fine. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a good base, and then we can go from there. Okay, good. So I think the next thing to talk about is what topic do we want to focus on in these different meetings? You know, in the past, some of the meetings they've taken the format of inviting either strategic facilitators in or folks from LEAs that are doing the work to share their successes and challenges. We did one on Grow Your Own. We've looked at the diversity report, the hiring diversity report. So knowing that we have covered some topics, not to say we can't revisit them, are there any other topics within our pillar that people would like to put forward to focus on during a meeting?
So, Brian, I was kind of thinking if we look at kind of the four, I don't know if there's a technical term, but the five subsections of Pillar 2, and see if we've highlighted or addressed either components within those, or you know, maybe we've spoken to some more than others. I know, you know, the last one of improve educator compensation. I don't know how much we can address and talk about that piece of it. But maybe kind of looking at some of the other sections, like the increasing the rigor of teacher preparedness programs, the recruit and maintain high quality and diverse teacher workforce, and then establish the statewide educator career letter and professional development system. So just kind of highlighting even, you know, some of those topics and then some of the things that are under each one of those topics. That would just be my recommendation. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I was looking at this timeline a couple weeks ago, and as soon as you started talking, I said, "Oh, she's got it. That's the right answer. Let's pull this up so everybody can see it." And so this document does go to the right with all the timelines and the different years. But I think for viewing purposes, I'm going to leave that piece off of it. So
Sorry, Brian. I do think, I mean, I get for viewing purposes, but I really think that some of that becomes really critical and thinking about, you know, what progress has been made on Pillar 2, and also trying to address potential misunderstandings about Pillar 2 and or the AIB. Because, you know, there's some that are worried about, oh, we have to implement this, you know, next week or next year. And there are things that were supposed to be actually implemented in other years. So maybe part of it for me would be interesting is that, you know, there are things that should have started in FY22. There's some things that have the bullet points in FY25, and so maybe looking at some of those and trying to figure out what has been done with those that were supposed to start earlier. Where's the progress with those? And for those who are starting FY25 or FY26? What's the plan around that?
Is there something in particular you're thinking about, John?
Um, well, I know that I raised this earlier, and not really for like one of the things we haven't really touched on is the increasing teacher preparation programs and licensure requirements. You know, I know that the board has talked about performance assessments and others tied to that. In fact, I recently heard from someone that there used to be two options, EdTPA and PPAT, but that PPAT is no longer an option. It's out now just EdTPA. And so, you I think that the state at some point is starting to examine cut scores around that. And so I personally think that that would be an interesting topic to think about, and especially maybe think about how are those increased requirements potentially are they having an impact, or could they have an impact on our recruitment of diverse candidates? Because that is that is one of the concerns usually nationwide, is that sometimes the increased rigor of requirements, especially around certain tests, leads to diverse candidates not being able to meet the requirements and end up not getting their certification. So I would like that to be maybe not necessarily the first thing, but definitely something that I think should be on our plate.
And I could add, John, I think that's a really important topic to look at. And you identified several even subtopics that could be maybe within that meeting, or maybe it's a topic that comes up more than once in the year. And I would suggest that we consider some guests from MSDE to be able to come and really share. There has been work on this, and there might even be a legislative update from last year that we could bring to the group that would give some information. And then I can also add, there is a report due to the AIB December 1st about progress made in our teacher preparation programs. So there's a work group around teacher prep programs that includes deans and directors from each of the programs, LEAs, and some state agencies. They will be meeting this month, and the report will be generated in time for December 1st, but that would be something that you'd have access to. Like as soon as we get it, it will be made public. So that may be a new year topic to dig into, just to let you know some information that could be in your hands, and some guests that we might want to bring to speak about that. And then we could also invite higher ed, if you would want to talk to any higher ed institutions about, what these changes are looking like, how their progress is going, what they're seeing and feeling around that.
Yeah, that strikes me as, thanks, Rachel, for all that background on stuff that's headed our way that could kind of fuel the meeting. John, I think that's a great suggestion about teacher prep and how you laid it out. I think a related topic, maybe we could do sequential meetings. I'm interested in hearing mostly from MSDE about their setting of guidelines for induction in all the LEAs. And I think that could be a nice sequential meeting to first hear about teacher prep programs, and then to hear about the induction programs in the LEA. So potentially we could stack those two topics 1 month after another.
And again, I can just mention, I know we have some LEAs and a strategic facilitator in particular that would be there's a neat thing happening around that in one of our districts that I think we could invite them to come and speak to that. And there's a lot happening around that this year with at the state level, thinking about what induction looks like. So I think that would be a great topic as well, and ripe for multiple guests.
Great. So I think we've got to Patricia and Devora, the topic of teacher prep. We can figure out which month later. 1 month on teacher prep, another month on induction. What other ideas?
I was going to say maybe around the MB national boards, and I know the reports or the next round come out in December. So maybe sometime in the spring, looking at, I don't know who, but some of the data around that, are they increasing? I think someone posed the question of what happens if a district does not have enough nationally board teaching candidates, what would be their plan? So maybe in the spring, looking at some of that data and around the diversity and the pools of candidates who are nationally board certified.
Yeah, I would add to that, what the career ladder would look like, when it comes to being able to use the National Board Certified Teachers. How is it set up? Or if there are any districts that already have something that is in place that could be used as a model.
Along those lines, we might also look at the career ladder plans that have been submitted. Some, I guess, have been partially approved, like levels 1 through 3. But we could kind of do a dive into like what's happening across the state and like have some kind of analysis of what different districts are doing, especially around levels 1 through 3. But then there's also a number of districts who've been piloting level 4, and we might be able to kind of see some of the things that they're doing with their pilots.
I would add that I mean, to me, I sort of see it a nice, if we were to do something with teacher prep, then induction, and then I do like the national board and going into looking at the career ladder. Because I know I brought this up earlier, and these are just things that I hear on a regular basis, that some districts are feeling holes in the admin level because of the strong incentives to stay in the classroom for national board. And while on one hand, that's great, I'm curious if districts are feeling that overall, and if they are, how are they filling the roles of admin? And are any of them, and I need to look at the levels a little bit more carefully, but are any of them really having more hybrid positions, which are more half and half? Sort of, Justin, you talk about your coach, you teach a class, are more districts using that type of model? Maybe not just one class, but halftime or things like that.
I was kind of thinking about how you just framed a moment ago about like the teacher prep induction, and I know I think it was Patricia was saying like NBCT more in the spring. So kind of like, what about before NBCT, like the part after you're inducted, but before you're thinking about National Board Certified? What does professional development look like? I know there's the blueprint calls for a different style of professional development, job embedded professional development. Even the evaluation system and like PAR is changed. Like, well, the evaluation systems have to change, but also all districts have to have PAR as part of their evaluation. So I wonder if maybe we could talk about like what's happening on the job in terms of professional development after you've been inducted, and then we could kind of round out the year with the numbers that might be available at that point for national board and information about the career ladder and stuff like that. So kind of like we put in that little gap right there.
And I agree with you, Justin. I was going to say the other part about that collaborative time piece that is in Pillar 2, like that's something that we haven't talked about either, is just kind of what does that day and that structure look like, not only for the job embedded professional development, but for, adding that teacher time allotment and the collaborative planning pieces that are there. How is the non-instructional time requirements? So really, I don't know what does that look like?
You guys have thrown so many great topics out there, and my brain is on fire with, we can point you to this and to that and over here, and this is happening, and this county's doing that. So all of these topics are very worthy of conversation, and I like the progression that you're thinking. It's funny too how they're intersecting. So that collaborative time piece is going to tie back to the career ladder, as is NVC. Like they're going to intersect frequently, PAR as well. And I wanted to just mention a couple of things. We have some strong partnerships with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards and NBCT. So they have offered to join your meetings if you would ever like someone to come and talk at the national perspective. They'd also be able to give you some pretty fascinating stats about Maryland. Like we had more new teachers as a number, a straight solid number, not percent of teachers, than any other state in the country last year. So, we're a little small state, but we have a lot. People are buying into this. They're seeing the incentive, the merit of it, and are making the shift to pursue that. So we do have guests from there available. The AIB has multiple technical assistance grants that we manage and have offered to the LEAs and the CTE committee. One of those this year. So last year, you knew about the strategic facilitator grant that we offered the districts the opportunity to choose a strategic facilitator if they wanted to participate. This year, we still have that going. We still have amazing strategic facilitators out in the field, but we also added a few content area focuses. So we have one, which was the top priority resource allocation. The second, the rest of them are very specific to pillars. So we have pre-K expansion, career ladder, and CCR. Our career ladder lead would be phenomenal to come and present and share with that to really explain the why of the career ladder. And right now, a lot of people think about the career ladder as it's the new way to think about teacher pay. And it's actually very different than just a salary scale. There's a whole lot more embedded in a career ladder that I think would be really helpful to get that information out. A little plug, if anybody's going to be at MAESP, MASSP this coming week, we will be doing a session with her about leadership and what the career ladder looks like, so that our principals and assistant principals can speak to that to encourage their teachers about career planning decisions. So that is definitely something that we could invite her to share. But along those lines, you mentioned at the beginning, Patricia, one of the goals of Blueprint is to increase educator compensation, to increase the professionalism of the profession, and compensation is a key component of that. We could definitely get you some updates about that. This year in their Blueprint plans, every county had to submit an attestation and show that they've met the 10% increase that was required. But we could talk about what that's done across the state, what it looks like now. And as we're getting to the 60,000 minimum and rethinking our career ladders, we could have people come and talk about that. There's some finance people that could talk about that. There's some strategic facilitators, some LEA folks that could definitely come. Two other quick things and then I'm done. John, you mentioned the shortage of administrators, and that is something that is definitely on our radar here at the AIB, a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well, having been an administrator. It's a national problem. It's not just a Maryland problem. Some states are further into this than we are, but it's something that we know. We know that having a strong principal at a school makes a big difference. It's second only to the classroom teacher in terms of impact on student learning per the research. But I think that's a very important topic to bring to the table, to talk about our leaders and how Blueprint envisions principals. It's a much more instructional role. So I think we could definitely talk about that. And then finally, Justin, I appreciate you mentioned PAR. There are some districts that are doing it, that have already had experience that we could learn from. So that could be really helpful for those who it's new and standing up something this big. It's a big shift. So that could be a very valuable topic to dig into as well. So I've got all kinds of things swimming around my head of who we could connect you to or different ways that might look. But this sounds like a fabulous list of topics.
It also sounds like we've planned out like the next 3 years,
right?
With the topics that we just suggested here as well. And so my last piece, and I know it's not technically a part, it's just the communication. And I just feel like there is a lot happening with education in Maryland, not only from the Maryland Blueprint, but just MSDE as a whole, and some of the most recent policies and things that were enacted. And I just think, short of an educator just wanting to know what's happening, how is information being sent in a format that is understandable and easily able to be read and understood, and then the impact of it. And so I think that would also be just, I know people post or different LEAs post their plans online, and some people like us like to go on there and read them and kind of see what's happening. But just as a broad stroke for educators who may not want to go that in depth, how is it that information is being disseminated to the people who are ultimately going to be the ones who are impacted by the decisions that are happening above? But at the end of the day, it's going to trickle down to, those. So how is that information being communicated?
Great point.
Yeah, and it's great discussion. And Justin, I just saw your notes in the chat. Thank you for that. And they're very similar to some of the notes that I've been taking during this discussion. And I do like the idea, I think we kind of stumbled into it unintentionally, of trying to create some sense of progression or sequence with our meetings, to be intentional about it. In my notes, just to cross-reference, I think we had an idea of starting with teacher prep, moving to induction, PD on the job, and then probably multiple meetings on different career ladder dynamics, whether national board was mentioned. I know the 60-40 split in terms of time. That's, to me, probably 2 meetings. So if we were to count them, if we started, we did teacher prep, induction, PD, and then 2 on the career ladder, that puts us at roughly 5 meetings. And then we have to think about communication as the 6th meeting, or potentially folding it in somewhere. But if we started this sequence in January, then that would guide our work up until the summer, with plenty of time to invite all the different folks that either we know or that Rachel can connect us with. So Devorah, I know that's my kind of summarizing comment on what I heard in the discussion. Anything that I missed or anything to add on, Devorah?
I was thinking, another thing happening is the science of reading. It looks like from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a requirement for teachers to at least take some credits in it, or show some
Training.
professional development.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a little bit vague on the details, but it's definitely something I heard.
You're not, Devorah, you're right. We had to, I don't know, Rachel, the technical, but I know we had to do it by the end of last year. And there were various modules. There were self-paced modules. There were full day sessions that you could sign up for. There were evening sessions that you could sign up for around the science of reading. Personally, I feel like I need a whole class or 2 or 3 to really understand, because I felt like everything that I learned about teaching students to read is not what is the most current way to teach students to read. But I do know many districts have been in compliance with really getting that out there, and structuring a wide range of professional developments to make sure everyone has that knowledge.
And then it kind of spins off too, like where you're thinking about our new teachers, like what are they getting in undergrad? And then we also need to think about, like, secondary teachers are different than elementary teachers when it comes to reading. We all teach reading. We know that reading's always embedded, but the training needed looks different, and the way that you support students at different levels looks different. Devorah, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because the big through line that it brings for me to mention is that it would be very powerful at times for some of our advisory committees to pair together. The science of reading fits with Pillar 3 too. So there's a teacher training and a how do I grow myself as a professional, which falls into that Pillar 2 piece of it, but it also connects to the Pillar 3 piece. And when we're thinking about the core instruction that's happening for our students and student growth. So if you see that there's an opportunity to do a joint meeting, if you would want to talk with Pillar 3, or think about maybe Pillar 4, when we're thinking about Are we preparing our teachers well to support community schools, to support students that are speakers of other languages or those with special education needs? There might be a powerful connection between Pillar 2 and Pillar 4 or 1 or 3. So maybe there's an opportunity to plan a joint meeting in the spring to dig into one of these topics from multiple pillar perspectives if you're interested in that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that would be exciting that never occurred to me, but the idea of a couple different committees getting together because these, the pillars they're distinct, but they're not silos. I think that could be really interesting conversation. So what I'd propose, just looking at the time and what we wanted to get accomplished tonight, it sounds like we have identified kind of a 5 or 6 meeting sequence, and maybe there's an idea for maybe a collaborative meeting as well with another committee. What I would propose is that we'll use this as our working draft. We'll share it with the committee members that weren't able to attend tonight, just to let them think and give their input and feedback on this idea. And if they're on board, then that gives us plenty of lead time this month and next month, knowing the holidays and all that extra that brings, to start reaching out to folks and scheduling certainly our January and February meetings and developing some agendas with some guiding questions. So that would be my proposal going forward. Is there anything during tonight's meeting that anybody else wanted to either bring up or any questions with the proposed plan going forward?
No questions for me.
Okay.
I would just say with our collaborations to also collaborate with Pillar 1. With the pre-K, I know we're expanding pre-K, and part of that is getting a diverse profile of pre-K students, many who are leaving their home and have not really had any experiences or uh, like any type of evaluations or any of those things, and they're coming to pre-K, and I know it is causing um, some uncomfortableness with, we're getting an influx of students who may not have skills or the traditional things that we think pre-K students should come to school with, and then having to go through the process of referring and those type of things. But at the end of the day, the students are still in the classroom. And so really, as we expand pre-K and we are recruiting teachers, what does that look like when students are not showing up as the way that I think some teachers think that they should?
That's a fabulous point, and something that we hear as well, that as we're growing our pre-K, we're definitely feeling the growth pains, and that there's more supports needed to support our younger students as they're coming in. I think Pillar 1, you would enjoy talking with them as well. They would definitely be up for that. It reminds me of another thing, and Devorah, I want to put you on the spot for a second, so heads up. One other thing related to Pillar 2 that we didn't mention, but it might be on your radar, Devorah, is the CTE perspective. So when we're thinking about expanding in Pillar 3, the options available to students in high school, we're looking at additional CTE programming and CTE teachers. And some of those folks may come with an automotive background or a welding background or a nursing background. When we're thinking about them as a professional employee, I think there's a conversation to be had that might be a really good joint conversation with Pillar 3, with our workforce boards and our CTE people, and we call it the other half of Pillar 3. We've got the CCR side of it and the CTE side of it. But Devorah, any thoughts or insights on the CTE perspective of hiring teachers for those roles, just knowing your experience?
Well, I think it would be a really good idea to act. I know that's part of the pillar to expand. But I'm wondering, again, how are we going to get those professionals to come into the school system?
it's a conversation we're going to need to have. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things to think about with that. I can tell you, I had the opportunity to go to a district in Texas that is doing it. And maybe we bring in an out-of-state guest. Maybe we talk to somebody that they have 37 career options in their small district. It's a district of 30,000 kids, so not smaller than what I'm used to, but medium around here. And so we could consider bringing in a different state, somebody else who's got some experience. But I think our Pillar 3 team would enjoy that conversation with the lens of recruitment and hiring of a different type of teacher. Not
I
your
think it would, yeah, I think it would be really good if we can do that. I know one summer before last, I did it's a teacher externship
Mhm.
through the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. And I was sent to Whiting Turner
Ooh.
for a few weeks during the summer. A few of us teachers, and we learned so much about the industry. And the most important thing is that they really need people, to work in the construction field and all those related trades. They really want the students, like they said, they were really serious. They're not just saying it. It's been a shortage, and a lot of our students they don't think about going into those trades.
Mhm.
Um, so it would really be helpful if we could focus more on that as well.
So that might be a
It's
good
so
pillar cross collaboration conversation. And then, Brian, if I could throw out just one more lens, I don't think it's a meeting on its own, though it could be 5 meetings. It could be a meeting every week. I think we don't want to lose sight of our conditional teachers. So we're still in a teacher shortage. We still recognize that the pipelines for teachers are not full. Maryland imports our teachers. We don't grow enough here in Maryland, so they come from other states. But our conditional teachers are playing a very significant role in our education system right now. And as we think about the changes in teacher licensure with them and with everybody, I think we want to always be thinking about how are we working to retain our conditional teachers and to shift them to certified, fully certified teachers. So it might be a lens within, like, we don't always think about induction of conditional teachers. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You don't get the same induction always. And so is it the same as a first year teacher, or is it different? Like maybe that could just be a lens that we think about some of these topics through as we're moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that sounds great. And just listening to the conversation, I think, once we start to pull apart all of the different dynamics of Pillar 2, you start to see all these different connections. And that's the exciting part of the committee, but also the challenging part to figure out what we want to focus on and really engage with. So what I'll commit to doing is tomorrow I'll spend some time, I'll create a shared document that will have what we've talked about tonight. I'll try to capture it from my notes as best I can, and then everybody can continue to work off that document to add in all of these different dynamics, whether it's the CTE, the conditional. And I think the more we work on that document together, it'll flush itself out. I think we really accomplished what we wanted to do tonight. We've got our leadership set for the year. We have almost got the date, time window, all of those things set, and we've got a good sketch of our topic list. So thank you everyone for engaging. Great discussion tonight. Our next meeting will be during the month of January in the new year, and that'll give us plenty of time to get coordinated for our work during 2025. So with that, I'm going to call this meeting to a close, and thanks again for your engagement. Everyone, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.